The wind howled like a wild animal outside. Snow fell fast, covering the trees and rocks like a thick white blanket. Jack sat alone in his small wooden hut high in the mountains. His fireplace crackled, warming the room. He had no TV, no phone, signal, just peace. That's why he came here, to escape the noise of the city. But tonight, something felt wrong. He was sipping hot tea when he heard it. Knock. No, not a knock. More like a scratch, a soft, dragging sound against the wooden door. He froze. His eyes moved to the window, but the snow made it hard to see anything. Probably just the wind, he whispered to himself. But then he heard it again. This time closer. Scratch. Thud. Whimper. Jack stood up slowly. His dog, Bear, growled low from under the table. Bear was a big mountain dog, and he didn't growl unless something was really out there. Jack grabbed his coat, pulled on his boots, and picked up the flashlight. He opened the door just a little. Cold air rushed in like ice. He aimed the flashlight toward the trees. At first, he saw nothing, just snow and shadows. But then, movement, something or someone was hiding behind a tree just 10 feet away. "Hey!" Jack shouted. "Who's there?" No answer. He stepped outside, crunching the snow under his boots. Bear followed, growling deeper now. "Look, I don't want trouble," Jack said. "If you're lost, I can help." Still no reply. But now he could see a shape. A figure crouched low behind the tree trunk. Then, she stepped out. Jack's breath caught in his throat. It was a woman, but not a normal one. Her skin was a soft silver blue, glowing faintly in the dark. Her hair shimmered, like moonlight, falling down her back in tangled waves. Her eyes were large, shining, and filled with fear. She wore what looked like a torn silver suit, barely covering her arms and legs. Her feet were bare. She was shivering hard. Jack couldn't speak. He had never seen anything like her. I'm not going to hurt you," he said, finally holding out a hand. The alien woman looked at him, blinking snowflakes from her lashes. Then she stepped forward, slowly, carefully, like a deer ready to run. When she reached the porch, she collapsed. "Hey!" Jack rushed forward and caught her before she hit the ground. She was ice cold. Her hands felt like frozen glass. Her lips were blue, and her breathing was weak. "Damn," Jack muttered. "You're freezing to death." He lifted her gently into his arms. She was light, too light, like she hadn't eaten in days. Bear followed closely as Jack brought her inside. He laid her on the couch near the fire. She didn't move. Her eyes fluttered half open, and her lips moved like she wanted to speak, but no words came out. Jack covered her with every blanket he had. He sat beside her and placed a mug of warm water near her lips. She didn't drink. He spoke softly. "You're safe now. I don't know what you are or where you came from, but you're not dying on my floor tonight." After a few minutes, her fingers twitched. Her body shook less. She was alive. Barely. Jack kept watching her, trying to understand what had just happened. Was she human? Some kind of mutant? No. Her features were too perfect, too delicate, too otherworldly. Then he noticed something. On her arm was a mark, a glowing symbol, like a tattoo made of light. It pulsed softly, blue and warm. What did it mean? Suddenly, she opened her eyes wide. "Please, don't let them take me," she whispered in a weak, broken voice. Jack leaned forward. "Who? Who's trying to take you?" Her eyes filled with panic. "They'll kill me if they find me." And then she passed out. Jack sat back, heart pounding. Who was this alien woman? What was she running from? And had she brought danger to his quiet mountain life? As snow continued to fall outside, Jack stared at the flames in the fireplace, knowing this night had just changed everything. The fire crackled softly. Snow still whispered against the windows. Inside the small hut, everything was quiet. except for the shallow, uneven breathing of the strange alien girl lying under the thick blankets. Jack didn't sleep that night. He sat in the old wooden chair beside the fireplace watching her, this mysterious, silver-skinned woman who had appeared out of the storm. Her body was still weak, her lips dry. Every so often she twitched as if fighting something in her dreams. Fear, maybe. Pain. Something from her past. He didn't know her name. He didn't even know if she could speak again. But her eyes, when they opened briefly, they weren't empty. They were begging. Not for food, not for warmth, but for safety. Jack had seen that look before, in soldiers, in refugees, in wild animals cornered by fire. This was the look of someone who had survived, something terrible. At sunrise, he made her a broth, hot, simple, and soft. He gently touched her shoulder. Her eyes fluttered open. She tried to sit up, panicked, but her body gave out. "It's okay," Jack said calmly. "You're safe here." She didn't answer. He held the spoon near her lips. She didn't move. Didn't trust him yet. But she stared at the spoon and then at his face. She studied him carefully. Then, after a long silence, she opened her mouth just a little. He fed her slowly, spoon by spoon. It wasn't much, but it was something. Hours passed. She stayed quiet, her head resting against the pillow. Jack noticed how alert her eyes were now, tracking every sound in. The room, the kettle boiling, Bear scratching at the door, the wind pressing against the roof. She didn't ask questions. She didn't smile. She just watched. And Jack felt something strange. He didn't feel like a rescuer anymore. He felt like someone being watched by a creature much smarter than she looked. Finally, just before sunset, she tried to sit up again. Jack helped her, placing a pillow behind her back. He offered her more water. She took it this time. Then, after another long pause, she finally spoke. One word. "Anera." Jack blinked. "Anera?" She nodded weakly. "My name." Her voice was soft, like wind across ice. Strange, almost musical. Jack gave her a nod. "I'm Jack." They sat in silence for a while after that. That evening, Jack gave her a pair of his socks and a wool sweater. It hung loose on her small frame, but she didn't complain. She touched the fabric gently like it was something rare and valuable. Jack stepped outside to bring in more firewood. When he came back, she was standing, barefoot again, near the window. "You shouldn't be up yet," he said. She turned, her head slowly. Her hair fell across her cheek like silver silk. "I had to see if they followed me." Jack frowned. "Who are they?" She didn't answer, but her face told the story. She was scared, so scared she had run barefoot through a blizzard. That night she refused the bed. She chose to sit on the floor, leaning against the stone wall near the fire. She didn't want to be too far from the exit. Jack didn't argue. He simply sat near her on the opposite side of the room. He gave her space, but he stayed close enough that she knew she wasn't alone. She spoke only once more. "They don't like when we escape," she said quietly. "Who?" Jack asked. She looked up, eyes glowing in the firelight. "They made us, built us, but we were never meant to live free." Then just like that, she turned her face to the wall and closed her eyes. Jack didn't sleep again. He stayed up, thinking about her words. They made us. Was she not born like humans? Was she some kind of experiment? Why was she on Earth, and what was chasing her? More importantly, what had he brought into his home, and what would come next? As the fire burned low, Jack realized something deep in his gut. He wasn't just sheltering a lost girl. He was hiding something dangerous, something powerful, something someone wanted back at any cost. Jack had never met someone who made silence feel so loud. Anera said little, but every move she made, every quick glance, every time she flinched at small sounds, told Jack something was deeply wrong. She never faced the window for long. She stayed away from mirrors and never asked questions about Earth. She acted like someone who had no past, or was running from one she wanted to forget. But Jack needed answers. On the third morning, as frost covered the trees outside, Jack handed her a warm cup of tea and said gently, "You can trust me. If you tell me what's after you, I might be able to help." Anera didn't move at first. Her hands tightened around the cup. Then slowly, she looked at him. Her silver eyes were calm, but heavy, like they carried a weight too big for her thin body. "You want to know what I ran from?" she whispered. "I'll tell you, but you won't believe it." Jack leaned forward. "Try me." Anera sat down by the fire. The orange light danced across her skin. "I wasn't born on a planet like this," she said. "I was created in a place without sky, without warmth, without a name. We were grown in chambers, designed to be obedient, beautiful, useful." Jack stared. "You were made?" Anera nodded. "My species, what you would call female companions, were developed by an alien race known as the Vorak. They wanted creatures that looked soft, loving, gentle, but inside we were made to serve. Never question, never say no." Jack clenched his jaw. "That's sick." Her lips twitched. It might have been a smile or a tremble. "We were kept in glass cells, watched every hour. They said we were gifts for the galaxy. Rare, expensive. But if one of us failed to please, she disappeared." Jack's stomach turned. "And you escaped from them?" "Yes," she whispered. "But not alone. There was another. Her name was Selly. She helped me break the lock on the chamber. We climbed through vents, cried in silence for hours, hiding in waste tunnels. When the alarms rang, she stayed behind, so I could run." Her voice broke. "I think they killed her." Jack moved closer, not touching her, but letting her know he was there. "Why Earth?" he asked. "Why here in the mountains?" "Jay." "I didn't choose," she said. "When I stole one of their cloaked scout pods, it was already damaged. It crashed here." Jack blinked. "Wait, that flash in the sky 2 weeks ago, that was you?" Anera nodded. "I crawled out before the fire reached the engine, walked in the snow until my legs gave out. Then I saw your hut, and hoped maybe humans were different." Jack sat back, breathing slowly. An alien race that grows female servants in labs, escape, a crash landing, and now one of them was in his house, scared and hunted. "How far will the Vorak go to get you back?" he asked. She looked at him. "They don't stop. They don't forgive." Outside, a cold wind pushed against the walls. Inside, Jack's quiet life was melting away. He had planned to spend winter alone, chopping wood, drinking tea, fishing in frozen lakes. But now, he was housing an alien fugitive from a race that treated living beings like objects. And if what she said was true, they were coming. Soon. That night, Anera stood near the fire again. She seemed calmer, though her eyes stayed sharp. "Thank you," she said softly. Jack looked up. "For what?" "For not calling anyone. For not locking me outside. For listening." He gave a quiet shrug. "Didn't feel right leaving you in the snow. You're a guest now. That makes you my responsibility." Her head tilted. "You're kind. You have strange kindness." Jack raised an eyebrow. "And yours doesn't?" Anera looked away. "We weren't taught kindness, just performance." Later, Jack checked the door locks, double-bolted the windows, and loaded his old hunting rifle. He didn't know how advanced the Vorak were. He didn't know if Earth's satellites saw the crash, but he knew this. Something out there wanted her back. And not because they missed her, because to them, she was property. But to Jack, she was a person. And he was ready to protect her, even if it meant war. Anera woke up before sunrise. Not with panic this time, but with confusion. The room was still. The fire had burned low, glowing faintly like sleepy embers. Outside, wind howled against the wood panels. But inside there was warmth, Her silver eyes blinked slowly. She was on the couch, wrapped in thick human fabric. A pillow cradled her head. Something about it all felt wrong. No pain, no commands in her ear, no cameras watching, just soft light. A dog snoring nearby, and him. Jack sat across the room, head resting back, mouth slightly open. He had fallen asleep sitting upright with a blanket over his shoulders, the old hunting rifle resting beside him. He looked like a statue made of quiet strength and worry. She had watched many males in her life, rich, powerful, cold. They had stared at her like a toy, like property. But Jack, he hadn't even looked at her like a woman. He just saw a person, and that confused her more than anything. She rose carefully, the blanket sliding off her shoulders. Her bare feet touched the cold wooden floor. The boards creaked under her weight. Jack stirred but didn't wake. Anera walked closer, not to run, not to steal, just to understand. She crouched down in front of him and stared at his chest. His shirt was loose, the buttons slightly open from the top. His breathing was calm and steady. She had seen skin before, her own, other models, even clients, but it always felt like something empty. A surface. But this time, her hand rose without thinking. She reached forward, slowly, and placed her hand against his chest. Warm, real, steady, alive. Jack's heart beat beneath her fingers, thump, thump, thump. She closed her eyes. It was the first time she felt a heartbeat that didn't belong to a machine or to fear. It grounded her. Suddenly, his hand moved. She flinched and pulled back, ready to flee. But Jack didn't open his eyes, he just muttered something in his sleep. "It's all right, you're safe." His voice was soft, dreaming. Anera blinked. No command, no trap, just comfort. She stood and backed away, confused by the tight feeling in her chest. She didn't know what it was. It wasn't fear, it wasn't programming. Maybe it was something humans called emotion. Later that morning, Jack woke up to the smell of something unfamiliar. He looked toward the fireplace and froze. Anera stood by the small kitchen counter, trying to heat something in a pot. She was wearing his oversized sweater, sleeves rolled up awkwardly, and her silver hair tied back with a shoelace. The broth in the pot was smoking. Jack jumped up. "Whoa! Careful, careful!" Anera stepped back quickly. I'm sorry. I wanted to help." Jack grabbed the pot off the heat and placed it down, laughing. "It's okay, you just nearly invented poison gas." She tilted her head, confused. He smiled. "It means, next time I'll do the cooking." She blinked once, then, strangely, smiled. A soft, quiet, real smile. They sat together, sipping warm tea and sharing a quiet morning. Jack looked at her for a long time before finally asking, "You touched me, didn't you?" Anera went still. His voice was gentle. "I wasn't dreaming." She looked down at her cup. "I needed to know." "Know what?" "That you're real. Not another illusion. Not another test. That your kindness wasn't fake." Jack leaned back in his chair. "I don't know what they did to you, Anera. But whatever it was, you don't have to be afraid here. I'm not part of them." Anera nodded. "I believe you. That's the problem." Jack raised an eyebrow. "How is that a problem?" "Because now I don't want to leave." The words hung in the air. Neither of them spoke for a while. Finally, Jack stood. "Come with me." He led her outside. The snow had stopped falling. The mountains glowed in the pale light of dawn. Everything sparkled. "This is Earth," he said, "beautiful and broken, but free." Anera looked at the sky, wide and endless. Tears gathered in her eyes. "Free," she whispered. "I don't even know what that means yet." "You'll learn," Jack said. "One day at a time." She turned to him, her voice barely audible. "Would you stay close while I do?" Jack nodded, and this time when she reached for his hand, he didn't pull away. The fire had burned low again. Outside, the snow had stopped, and silence wrapped the mountain like a soft blanket. Jack slept. On the couch this time, arms folded across his chest, rifle nearby. Anera slept on the floor next to him, curled in a cocoon of blankets. Her breathing was calm now, steady, peaceful. For the first time since she had arrived, she hadn't woken up crying. But peace on Earth never lasts long, not for people like her. 1:42 a.m., Bear, the dog, growled. It was low and deep. Jack's eyes opened instantly. He didn't move, just listened. The fire popped softly. Wind scratched at the window. Then he heard it, a hum, faint, mechanical, like something hovering above the trees. Jack reached for the rifle quietly. Anera stirred in her sleep. Jack leaned down and whispered, "Don't move. Don't speak." She looked at him, and she knew. "They found me," she whispered. Outside, something floated above the treetops, black and sleek. A craft, smaller than a shuttle, with blinking red lights that didn't belong to any human aircraft. Jack peeked through the curtain. The ship made no noise now. It simply hovered, waiting. Then something dropped from its underside. Not soldiers, not drones, but hunters. 3 of them, tall, armored in living metal that shimmered like oil in water. Their heads were smooth, with no mouths, just a single red lens in the center of each face, glowing like a predator's eye. They weren't human. And they weren't here to talk. Jack grabbed Anera's hand. "Go to the back cellar, take Bear, hide. Don't come out unless it's me." She hesitated. "I can fight," she began. "No," Jack said sharply. "I've lived in these woods 10 years. I know how to disappear. Just go." Anera stared at him, and then ran with Bear to the back hatch, slipping silently into the trap door Jack had shown her earlier. She vanished below the floorboards. Jack locked the hatch and turned toward the front door. He loaded the rifle. The front door exploded inward with a blast of blue light. Jack rolled to the side just in time, shards of wood flying past his head. One of the Vorik hunters stepped through the smoke, scanning the room with its glowing eye. "Where is Unit 9F?" The machine voice echoed, flat and soulless. Jack raised his rifle and fired. The shot hit the creature's shoulder, sparking against its armor. It stumbled, but didn't fall. Jack dove behind the kitchen table as a plasma bolt slammed into the wall behind him. Outside, the other 2 hunters split apart, one circling the cabin, the other leaping to the roof with terrifying speed. Jack pulled a second clip from the drawer. He'd never fought aliens before, but he'd fought enough in the human wars to know timing and courage matter more than firepower. He waited, then fired again, this time at the creature's glowing eye. Direct hit. The red lens shattered. The hunter jerked, let out a distorted screech, then collapsed to the floor, twitching. Jack didn't stop. He ran to the door and jumped onto the porch just as the second hunter lunged from the side. Jack ducked, aimed upward, and pulled the trigger. Click empty. The creature reached for his throat, but suddenly a silver flash shot from the shadows. Anera. She flew into the alien like a streak of starlight, slamming a sharp object, an old steel fire poker, into the hunter's neck. The creature roared in a mechanical tone and thrashed wildly. Anera screamed as it grabbed her arm. Jack tackled it from the side, knocking it over the porch railing. It fell and didn't move. Both of them collapsed in the snow, gasping. "You weren't supposed to come out," Jack said, coughing. "You weren't supposed to be alone," Anera replied. They looked at each other and then up. The third hunter was still on the roof, and it was charging something big. Blue energy hummed across its arms. Anera's eyes widened. "They're going to destroy the whole cabin." Jack grabbed her hand. "Run!" They sprinted into the woods, Bear at their side. Behind them, the mountain hut that had once been a place of peace glowed blue, then exploded in a pulse of alien light. The shockwave threw them into the snow. Flames licked the sky. Their home was gone, but they were still alive, and together. They lay in the snow, breathing hard. Jack coughed. That's the last time I take in a quiet guest. Anera laughed softly through tears. I told you. They don't forgive. He turned to her. But I don't forget. And now, they've made it personal. She touched his shoulder gently. You risked everything for me. Jack looked her in the eyes, and I'll keep doing it until this ends. Snow kept falling. The forest was quiet again, but now it was the silence of loss. Jack limped through the trees, one arm pressed tightly against his ribs. Blood stained his coat, warm at first but quickly turning cold. Every step was heavier than the last. His breathing was shallow, fast. Behind him, Anera supported his weight as best she could, her slender frame pushing forward with surprising strength. You shouldn't have come back for me, Jack muttered weakly. You shouldn't have stood between me and death, she replied softly. They didn't speak after that. There was no need. They found a small cave behind an old rock slide, hidden, dry and deep, perfect for what little safety they could still find. Inside, Anera helped him sit against the wall. Jack winced and gritted his teeth. He had taken a hit to the ribs during the explosion. His hands were scraped and his left leg was likely fractured from the fall. But the worst part? He had done it for someone he had known only days. And somehow, he didn't regret it. Anera knelt beside him. Her hands trembled as she pulled open his coat. You're bleeding, she whispered. Jack chuckled weakly. Thanks, I hadn't noticed. But then he saw her face. Not angry, not annoyed, afraid, for him. She pressed both hands gently over his side, closed her eyes, and whispered something in a language he didn't recognize. Her palms began to glow. Faintly, at first, then brighter, like moonlight under the skin. Jack gasped. A deep warmth spread from her touch, like hot water sliding under frozen earth. His pain eased. The sharp stabbing in his ribs faded to a dull throb. The cold in his limbs retreated. He blinked in confusion. Are you healing me? She nodded slowly. It's not perfect, but I can shift tissue, calm your blood, close surface wounds. Jack looked down. The blood had stopped. The pain had faded. She had saved his life. Again, he stared at her. Why didn't you do this before? Anera looked away. It drains me. The Vorek used to force us to do it. On command. On strangers. I promised myself I'd never use it again, unless it was for someone who truly saw me as more than a tool. Jack was silent for a long moment, then he said, I see you, Anera. Her eyes met his. You're not a tool. You're not some product. You're you, and no one's ever taking that away again. She blinked fast. One tear slipped down her cheek. Then she did something unexpected. She leaned forward and rested her head against his shoulder. Not out of duty, not out of fear, but something closer, to peace. They stayed like that for a while, breathing quietly in the dim cave. Outside, the wind howled. Inside, something else was forming. Something strange and beautiful between two very different beings. A connection not built by programming, but by choice. Later, Anera built a small fire using branches from the cave floor. Jack watched her carefully. You know, he said, for someone created in a lab, you're surprisingly good at surviving in the wild. She smiled faintly. I was designed to adapt, learn fast, blend in with any species. Jack smirked. So, what do I do that confuses you the most? She paused, then answered honestly. You risked your life for me without asking for anything. In return, no command, no reward, just because you wanted to. That still confuses me. Jack nodded. Yeah, that's the human disease. We call it conscience. Anera tilted her head. I think I'm catching it." They both laughed softly. Suddenly, Bear, who had been lying near the fire, lifted his head and growled. Jack sat up sharply, but Anera raised a hand. "No, it's not them." Jack stared at her. "Then what is it?" She hesitated. "There's something else out there. Something not Vorak. Something older. Watching." Jack looked toward the dark mouth of the cave where the shadows reached in like fingers. "Friend or foe?" "I don't know yet," Anera said quietly. She stood, walked to the entrance, and whispered into the cold air. "We're still alive, and we're not afraid." Jack didn't understand what she meant, but something in her voice and in her new strength told him this wasn't the same girl who had collapsed at his door. This was someone reborn, and whatever came next, she was ready, and she would not face it alone. 3 days passed in the cave. Snow melted slowly under the weak sun. Birds returned to the trees. The wind no longer screamed, but the silence still held a heavy question. What now? Jack's wounds were healing well thanks to Anera. The fire still burned each night. Bear never left their side, and a rhythm had started to form. Small tasks, quiet talks, shared looks. But under all of it, something was changing. In her. On. The 4th morning, Anera stood at the cave entrance, staring at the wide, endless sky. Her silver-blue skin shimmered faintly in the light. The cold no longer scared her. The trees no longer felt like a prison. She had come to Earth as prey. Now she felt something different in her chest. Strength and a pull. Far above them in orbit, something had arrived. Jack joined her. "You feel it too?" Anera nodded. "My people. The ones who escaped like I did. They've been hiding across the galaxy. I sent a signal 2 nights ago." He looked up. "And now they've found you." "No," she said. "They found us." A soft, humming sound echoed in the sky. Clouds shifted. Then a shape appeared. Sleek, dark, organic-looking. Not like the Vorak ships. This one moved like a living creature, wings flowing like mist. It hovered silently above the forest. Anera took a deep breath. "It's not here to fight. It's here to take me back." Jack nodded slowly and said nothing. Later, by the fire, she sat across from him. "I have to make a choice," she said. "This ship, it can take me to safety. To others like me. I won't have to run anymore." "You should go," Jack said quietly. "You deserve peace." She looked at him for a long time. "But what about the peace I found here?" Jack smiled, but his eyes were tired. "It was never meant to last. My world is dangerous. My kind is complicated. And yet," she said, stepping closer, "you gave me everything, warmth, protection, freedom, when you had no reason to." "You were freezing," Jack said. "You needed help." "No, I needed someone to see me." "You did that." She touched his hand gently. "You taught me what it means to choose. Now I have to choose again." Jack stood up. "If you're asking me to beg you to stay," "I'm not," she interrupted. "I just want you to know, if I go, it's not because I want to leave you." He turned to face her fully. "Then why?" "Because if I stay, the Vorak will keep coming. More will die. This planet is not ready for their war. But if I go, I can lead them away, fight them from the stars." Jack stared at her. "You're not running anymore." Anera's eyes shone. "No, I'm standing." The ship lowered gently to the ground beyond the trees. A door opened. No stairs, no sound. Just light. Anera looked at Jack. "I want to come back one day. When it's over, I'll be right here," he said. "Mountain hut or no hut." She stepped closer, lifted his hand, and placed something in it. A crystal. Small, glowing faintly with her light. "What is it?" he asked. "A memory seed," she said. "If I don't return, you'll see what I saw. What we were, what we became." Jack held it tightly. She leaned forward and kissed his cheek, not with passion but with deep, quiet emotion. Then she whispered in his ear, "You weren't just my rescue, you were my awakening." Anera turned and walked toward the ship. Bear whined softly. Jack didn't stop her. She reached the door, paused once, and looked back. He raised a hand. She did too. Then she stepped into the light. The ship lifted silently and disappeared into the clouds, gone like a dream at sunrise. Jack stood in the forest long after. No sound, no fire, no silver-blue glow. Just a man, a dog, a crystal that pulsed with life in his hand, and a memory of something impossible. Later that night, back in the cave, Jack whispered to the stars, "Come back when you're ready, Anera. I'll still be here. And this time, the door won't just be open, it'll be waiting."